She made the announcement over brunch, pancakes, syrup, too much smiling. She held her phone out with a sonogram photo, one of those heavily filtered ones that looked more like a moon crater than a baby. Everyone clapped. Mom cried. Dad toasted with orange juice. I stared at the image like it had teeth. Tessa had always been theatrical. "Miracle baby," was her phrase. Said it like she'd conjured life out of thin air. Not once did she mention a donor. Not once did she thank the woman whose egg made it possible. Because that woman was me. My name is Natalie Green, 32, geneticist, Portland. I don't drink, I don't trust easily, and I don't sign things without reading the fine print. Or at least, I used to think that last one was true. 2 years earlier, Tessa had begged me. Said she couldn't carry, her egg count was shot, but the fertility clinic could still harvest and implant with a surrogate. "We could keep it in the family," she whispered. "You'd just be helping." It wasn't the first time she'd pulled the "help your big sister" card. I said I'd think about it. She pushed, cried, I gave in. I thought I was being generous. I thought I was being scientific about it, but when I asked for the contract to be notarized, she said, "Don't be dramatic, it's just a formality." When I asked for clinic names, she said, "It's already handled. You just show up." The egg retrieval happened, quick, clinical, efficient. Afterward, she ghosted me for a while, said she was processing. Now she was smiling at a brunch table, holding up a baby-shaped blur like it was hers and hers alone. No mention of donors. No mention of me. "Due in March," she said, beaming. "Everything about this baby is just mine. A part of me I never thought I'd have." Mine. The word landed like a blade. I didn't say anything, just refolded my napkin, took another sip of lukewarm coffee. That's how Tessa operated, wrapped theft in warmth, used declarations of love as camouflage, gaslighted you with thank yous. When Mom leaned in and said, "You must be so happy for her," I nodded, smiled, bit my cheek until I tasted blood. I left early that day, said I had to prep for a lecture. The truth? I needed to scream into a pillow. The fallout didn't come from confrontation. It never does with people like Tessa. They don't give you satisfying blow-ups, just a slow trickle of micro-damage, 1,000 tiny disrespects until you're hollow enough to accept it. But I wasn't hollow. I was watching. And that was the beginning. Not the brunch, not the egg, the watching. That night, I pulled out my old journals, looked at the exact dates I donated, looked at the time between then and now, looked at the math, the science. Her due date was wrong. If the embryo had been stored, fine, but the embryo would have been mine. She never said there'd been a surrogate, never said there hadn't. It was all fog. And in that fog, I saw something new. Control. Tessa didn't just want a child, she wanted my DNA without my name on it, my biology, without the burden of my presence. That realization didn't burn, it calcified. She'd stolen something living from me, and now she was parading it around like it had always belonged to her. I didn't react, not outwardly. The next day, I sent a polite text. "So happy for you. Could you send me the clinic information? I wanted to refer a colleague." She replied 3 hours later. "LOL, it was all such a blur. Not even sure I remember. I'll look it up later." She didn't. And that's when I made a private vow, not to get revenge, not yet, just to verify. Because something about the way she smiled that day, like she'd won something I didn't know I was competing for, like I was no longer a person in her eyes, just an ingredient, and ingredients don't get visitation rights. The next time I saw her, she had a baby bump and a secret. We were at Mom's house, neutral ground. Tessa waddled in wearing a flowy maternity dress and carrying a Tupperware of gluten-free muffins. She acted tired, gracefully inconvenienced. The kind of performative exhaustion reserved for royal pregnancies and social media captions. I offered to help clean up after dinner. She didn't lift a finger, just sat on the couch, hand on her belly, watching Mom and me scrub dishes like she was already the matriarch. But I wasn't watching her. Not really. I was watching her phone. She left it on the counter when she went to the bathroom. No passcode. Same carelessness she'd had since we were kids. I opened it. Her email app was already running, something about a payment plan to Bright Hatch IVF. The name clicked. It wasn't the clinic she'd told me she was considering. It was the one she specifically said had terrible reviews. So why use it, unless it wasn't about reputation, unless it was about discretion? I took a screenshot, then another. Invoice, patient login, retrieval calendar, and then I hit gold, an emailed PDF labeled Biological Material Consent Form. My name was on it. Not Natalie Green, egg donor. Not Natalie Green, known relative. Natalie Green, anonymous contributor. Anonymous. The word itched, like a tag left in the back of your shirt. Anonymous is what they call bodies in morgues. Anonymous is what she turned me into. I sent the documents to myself and deleted the sent message from her outbox. Old habit. I'd cleaned up enough of Tessa's mistakes growing up to know how to cover a trail. The rest of the evening I smiled, laughed at Mom's stories, kissed Tessa goodbye on the cheek. She smelled like lavender oil and ownership. On the way home, I called a friend from med school, Mia. She worked in bioethics law now. I didn't give her names, just the scenario. If someone forged a fertility agreement, I asked, what's the recourse? Her voice went tight. You'd have to prove intent, that they knowingly misrepresented your consent. What if they used the egg without telling me the full process? That's fraud, Nat, medical fraud. Depending on the state, it could be felony level. I didn't tell her it was my sister. I didn't tell her the fetus was already kicking. Instead, I logged onto the Bright Hatch portal with Tessa's credentials. She reused passwords like she reused apologies. I found everything. Time-stamped appointments, surveillance footage of my visits, Tessa's signature on a substitution clause that allowed her to designate herself as recipient and guardian without donor notification. Legally, it looked airtight. Morally, it was a heist. She hadn't just lied to me, she'd erased me from my own genetics. That night, I printed everything and filed it under a new folder in my drawer. I labeled it Inheritance Theft, Living Subject, because it wasn't just about biology. Tessa wanted a daughter. She wanted one who looked like her but came without the mess of her actual body. She wanted the motherhood narrative without the chaos of real loss. So she took my biology, buried the truth, and called it a miracle. She didn't want to share this child. She wanted to stage a performance with my bloodline as the prop, but I wasn't a prop. I was the script she tried to plagiarize, and that's when the vow changed. It wasn't just verify anymore. It was witness, record, and reclaim. I wasn't going to confront her in private. I was going to let her write her story, then burn it down in front of an audience. I didn't have to wait long. The perfect stage was already being built. Pink tablecloths, silver balloons, catered quiches. Tessa's baby shower. It was held at the Hamilton Country Club. Her fiancé's mother had insisted. We want it to feel special, she'd said, gripping my hand like I was part of it. I nodded, smiled, said, of course. The moment I arrived, I started documenting. The custom banner, the printed napkins that read, Welcome Baby Girl Bennett, the framed sonogram with the caption, Already so loved by Mommy and Daddy. Her fiancé posed proudly beside her. I took photos, not for the memories, for the evidence. Everyone was there, family, friends, her co-workers from the PR firm, even distant cousins who barely spoke to us anymore, and they all gathered around Tessa like she was a saint, a survivor, the woman who finally made it after so many years of trying. She milked it, told a tearful story about loss, about how she prayed every night, how she just knew this child was meant to be hers. She left out the part where she hijacked my reproductive material under a falsified consent form. I watched her accept gifts she didn't deserve, watched her unwrap a onesie that said "Mini Mommy" while people cheered. I watched her thank guests for believing in her journey. And then she stood up and gave a toast, said this pregnancy was a miracle made possible by love, science, and second chances, said she wouldn't be here without the people in this room. My mother cried. I didn't. I recorded every word. After the shower, I caught her in the hallway alone. She was fixing her lip gloss in a mirror. I stood beside her, silent. She didn't acknowledge me. Then I said, "You know, I know." She blinked, smoothed the edge of her lipstick. Know what? Bright hatch, the portal, the consent form. Her hand froze, but only for a second. Then she gave the kind of smile you'd expect from a politician caught off camera, tight, rehearsed, eyes too still. I don't know what you think you saw, she said, but it wasn't that. I held her gaze in the mirror. You didn't ask. You stole. She turned toward me, lip curled. You said yes. I said yes to help you, not to be erased. She shrugged. Nobody cares. She'll be mine once she's born. And then she added, like it was a compliment, "You're not mother material anyway, Nat." It didn't sting, not the way she thought it would. Because in that moment, she stopped pretending. She wasn't scared of being caught. She was betting on me staying silent. That was her fatal mistake. I walked away without another word. The next morning I contacted Mia again, told her everything. No more hypotheticals, no more redacted names. She didn't hesitate. You need to take legal control of your own genetic material, now. We filed the first cease and desist against Bright Hatch that afternoon. It wouldn't stop the birth, but it would stop the lie from growing uncontested, and while the law moved, I began preparing the second stage. A quiet little website, password protected, labeled only with a date. Inside, the receipts, the medical trail, the sonograms, the insurance claims filed in my name. The consent form showing my forged signature next to a time-stamped email where she forwarded it without telling me. And the baby shower toast, word for word. I didn't post it. Not yet. Because revenge doesn't work when it's rushed. It works when it's undeniable. And Tessa was about to invite every person who ever mattered into a single room again. The rehearsal dinner, where both families would meet, toast, merge, where she'd stand up beside her soon-to-be husband and pretend the life she'd stolen was pure. I wouldn't ruin the wedding. I'd ruin the prelude. Because some stories don't deserve to walk down the aisle. They deserve to unravel in full view. It started like any other family celebration, white table linens, catered salmon, champagne flutes clinking too early in the evening. The rehearsal dinner was held at a boutique vineyard just outside town. Tessa had picked it for the rustic elegance. Rows of fairy lights dangled overhead. A string quartet played muted Vivaldi. It was too perfect, too curated. I arrived early, not to greet, to stage. There was a small AV setup in the corner, intended for slideshows. I borrowed it, uploaded my file, password protected, made sure it was queued as the first media in the folder labeled engagement. Nobody would notice. Not until it was time. The guests trickled in. our parents, the groom's family. His sister flew in from Colorado, the pastor who would officiate. Tessa was radiant in cream, the kind of glow that wasn't pregnancy, it was ownership. She believed the finish line was hours away. She didn't notice my stillness, or if she did, she mistook it for bitterness. Quiet women are often misread as harmless. Dinner was served. Toasts began. The groom's father went first, warm, predictable. Then my mother spoke. She cried halfway through, praising Tessa's resilience, her maternal strength, said she'd waited so long to be chosen by fate. I stared at my wine. Then came Tessa's turn. She stood, beaming, hands on her belly, described her journey, her miracle, her gratitude to modern science and divine timing. No mention of me, no flicker of recognition that her miracle was my biology. When she finished, the room clapped. That's when I stood up. I didn't raise my voice, didn't clear my throat, just stepped forward and said, "Before we go to dessert, I have something to share. A short video tribute." The room hushed. I clicked the remote. The screen flickered to life. Slide 1, Bright Hatch Confirmation, Egg Retrieval Authorization Form, my name at the top, timestamp, signature. Her email logged beside it. Slide 2, Insurance Claim Summary, reimbursement filed in my name. Slide 3, a screenshot of the Bright Hatch portal, side by side with the email Tessa had sent from her account, submitting my data with no consent trail. Slide 4, her baby shower toast, transcribed, her exact words, now cross-referenced with the evidence. Slide 5, me, recorded asking her, "You didn't ask. You stole." Her voice replying, "She'll be mine once she's born." Followed by, "You're not mother material anyway, Nat." The room froze. The groom stood. "What the hell is this?" Tessa's face cracked, but she recovered quickly. "It's fake. It's edited." I spoke calmly. "It's not. And the password to verify the archive is parental rights. Anyone here can check it now. The site's public." Her fiancé turned to her. "Tell me that's not real." She didn't answer. He walked out. Then the pastor, then the groom's mother. Tessa just stood there, staring at the screen, hands frozen around her wineglass. Our father spoke next, quietly. "What did you do, Tessa?" She said nothing. Because what could she say? That she'd taken her sister's egg, claimed the child as hers, and lied to everyone in the name of image? That she'd built her entire maternal identity on theft? I didn't wait for her to explain. I left. Not with triumph, with precision. Because the moment you let a liar collapse under the weight of their own performance, you don't have to scream, you don't have to push, you just have to open the curtain and let the audience see who's been standing behind it all along. The next 48 hours were chaos, but it was the kind of chaos I had planned for. Tessa's fiancé called off the wedding, publicly, posted a carefully worded announcement on Instagram. "I have been made aware of deeply disturbing actions involving medical consent and ethical violations. Effective immediately, I am ending all ties with Tessa Monroe." It went viral. People assumed he was talking about infidelity. He wasn't. The story spread, quietly at first, then with teeth. The fertility clinic confirmed that consent had not been fully documented. They launched an internal review. A nurse, whistleblower, stepped forward, said she'd raised concerns last year, but had been told, "Family matters are best left to family." I filed a formal grievance. Then I filed a custody claim. The courts didn't move quickly. No system does. But my legal team, backed by a women's health rights nonprofit, built the case with surgical clarity. DNA match, consent violation, deliberate misrepresentation of biological parentage. Add to that the video evidence, the insurance claim, the forged consent emails. It was airtight. But the hardest part wasn't legal. It was the baby. She was 9 months old. Bright eyes. Peach fuzz curls. She smiled when I walked in the room for supervised visitation. Tessa tried to block the visit, said I was emotionally unstable. The judge disagreed. During the second hearing, Tessa claimed she had always intended to tell me. The judge asked, "When?" She said, "Eventually." The court granted temporary shared custody, pending psychological evaluations. I passed mine without issue. Tessa didn't. The report cited narcissistic tendencies, control issues, inability to distinguish between identity and possession. She appealed. It stalled for 3 weeks. But time was on my side. Because every week that passed, the baby spent more time in my arms. She started to recognize me, reach for me, settle when I hummed. I didn't push it. I didn't tell her who I was. But I held her like I'd never been held. The final hearing was held in private chambers. No media, no spectators. Just 2 attorneys, a judge, and a truth that couldn't be ignored. The court ruled, custody transferred to the biological mother. Visitation rights for Tessa, pending 6 months of therapy. All records amended to reflect accurate parentage. The child's name would remain unchanged by my choice. I didn't want to erase what she'd known. I just wanted the truth to shape what came next. After the hearing, Tessa followed me into the hallway. She didn't yell, didn't beg. She said, "You ruined everything." I looked her in the eye. "No," I said. "You did that the day you decided I wasn't a person, just a resource." She didn't speak again, and I didn't look back. I left with my daughter, not out of vengeance, out of recognition, because what Tessa stole wasn't just biology. It was a future, and I was reclaiming it, moment by moment, breath by breath, not with rage, with resolve. I didn't plan to go public. That was never the goal, but the story leaked, first on a parenting forum, then a legal subreddit. By the time BuzzFeed ran the headline, "Woman discovers sister raised her biological child without consent," the internet had made up its mind, and it wasn't on Tessa's side. People weren't just outraged by what she'd done. They were haunted by how easy it was, how something that looked like love, like sisterhood, could be weaponized into a slow-motion heist of someone's future. The comments flooded in. "This is why women don't trust family with fertility." How many others has this happened to without a paper trail? She didn't want to be a mom. She wanted to own one. Tessa went offline. Her Instagram vanished. Her wedding was officially canceled. Vendors pulled out, citing ethics clauses. Her fiancé's law firm issued a quiet internal memo. "Associate conduct must reflect our institutional values." He didn't just leave her. He filed a civil suit. Intentional fraud, emotional distress, career damage. But even that wasn't the most brutal consequence. Her reputation became a case study. Literally. A guest lecturer at a women's law symposium used her as an anonymized example of intrafamilial reproductive coercion. The students guessed her name anyway. The university issued a statement condemning the abuse of reproductive autonomy. It didn't name her. It didn't have to. Her face was already in the meme cycle, a side-by-side of her baby shower post and my legal petition. The caption, "One woman's joy was another's theft." Tessa tried to fight back. She posted a video, crying, accusing me of being vindictive, of breaking up a family, of using the system to steal her child. It lasted 6 minutes. I didn't respond. I didn't have to, because the court transcript was public. The consent forms, or lack of them, were public. My medical records, the nurse's affidavit, the DNA results, all public. Truth didn't need a viral rebuttal. It just needed time, and time did the work. Tessa's name faded, slowly, not violently. No one cared to cancel her. They just stopped looking, stopped listening, stopped calling. The last headline I saw read, "Sisterhood Stolen, What One Woman's Betrayal Tells Us About Medical Consent in the Family Age." She'd become a cautionary tale, and I became anonymous again, quiet, intentional, free. I deleted my social accounts, changed my name in the system, not legally, just digitally, created a firewall between my new life and the echoes of the old one. Because justice isn't just about consequences, it's about protection, about building a life no one can overwrite again. My daughter's room is full of light now, no past, no secrets, just growth. She doesn't know the full story yet, but one day she will, and when she does, it won't be framed in rage, it'll be framed in truth. Because I refuse to let Tessa write her version first. It's strange how closure doesn't come with fireworks. It came for me on a Tuesday, quiet, gray, forgettable to anyone else. I was at the DMV, waiting for a number to be called. I glanced down at the new name on my license. No fanfare, no fear. Just mine. No more shared documents. No more crossed wires with Tessa's digital trail. No more phone calls from clinics asking if I'd confirmed my egg donation, as if it were a dinner reservation. Just silence. And in that silence, I realized something. Tessa never understood what she stole. She thought this was about a child, about biology, about motherhood as a trophy, but it wasn't. What she really took, what she tried to take, was the right to define my story. She didn't want to be a mom. She wanted to rewrite me as someone who wasn't, someone who gave something away, someone too careless to notice, someone too late. And now? Now, she's the one stuck in a story she can't control. People forget that revenge doesn't always burn loud. Sometimes it starves, sometimes it withholds. I never returned her messages, never called her back when she said she wanted just one conversation. Never let her see my daughter again, not as punishment, but as protection. My daughter deserves to grow up knowing what boundaries look like, what truth looks like, what it means when someone says no and means it. Tessa's name isn't mentioned in our house anymore, not in whispers, not in anger, not at all. She is, to us, what she tried to make of me. Invisible. Some people say forgiveness is freedom, but I think clarity is. And clarity taught me that not everyone who shares your blood shares your values. Some people will try to make your body their battleground, your silence their permission, your DNA their shortcut. But I refused to be a shortcut. I became the firewall. And because of that, my daughter has a different life. One built on consent, not coercion. One built on trust, not theft. I don't regret walking away. I regret not walking sooner. But now that I have, I don't look back. Not even once, and that, more than anything, is the ending Tessa can never rewrite.